There is a pyramid in Illinois, not a small one. A pyramid that covers more ground at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It sits just outside a town called Collinsville, 15 minutes from St. Louis, and most Americans have never heard of it. Illinois is hiding things, ancient things, structures that should not exist, built by people who vanished without leaving a single written word. If you want to see places like this every week, subscribe right now. Stay through the whole video because number 2 will genuinely change how you see this state. 12. Piasa Bird Rock Carvings, Alton. We start in Alton, a small riverside city on the Mississippi that most people drive through without stopping. High on the limestone bluffs above the river, there are ancient carvings of a creature unlike anything in nature. The Alini people called it the Piasa bird. Part deer, part fish, with a tail long enough to wrap around 3 men. French explorers documented it in 1673 and were genuinely terrified. The originals were destroyed by quarry blasting in the 1800s before anyone studied them properly. What remains is a recreation. But the original was so precise that researchers still debate what civilization had the skill to carve it, at that height on that cliff face. Nobody knows, and nobody agrees. 11. Kampsville Burial Mounds, Calhoun County. Along a quiet bend of the Illinois River in Calhoun County, there are burial mounds that archaeologists still cannot confidently date. The people who built them, the Hopewell culture, had trade routes stretching thousands of miles. Researchers at Kampsville kept finding copper from Michigan, obsidian from Wyoming, shark teeth from the Gulf of Mexico. These were not isolated people. Around 500 AD, they stopped. The mound building ended. The trade networks collapsed. The population scattered. Where they went is still one of archaeology's open questions. 10. The ancient Cypress forest, Cache River. In the far southern tip of Illinois, inside the Cache River State Natural Area, near the town of Cypress, there is a forest that feels impossible. Bald cypress trees, over 1,000 years old, rise from black water swamps with trunks so wide it takes 5 people to wrap their arms around them. The oldest trees here were already growing when William the Conqueror invaded England, when Chicago did not exist in any form. This ecosystem belongs in Louisiana, not Illinois. Scientists still study why this pocket of the Deep South ended up this far north. The trees survived everything. Most Illinoisans have never heard of them. 9. Dickson Mounds, Fulton County. Near the small town of Lewiston in Fulton County, there is a museum built directly over an ancient burial site containing nearly 300 individuals who lived between 950 and 1300 AD. What makes it disturbing is what the bones reveal. Researchers found sharp declines in health across several generations, malnutrition, rising infection rates, shorter lifespans, all coinciding precisely with the period when the nearby city of Cahokia was at its peak power. The uncomfortable theory, the rise of a great civilization, may have come at the direct cost of the smaller communities around it. The people buried at Dickson Mounds may have been exploited by the city we are about to discuss. 8. Woodhenge Solar Calendar, Cahokia. Before we reach the main event, there is something at Cahokia most visitors walk right past. A circle of large wooden posts arranged with mathematical precision. They call it Woodhenge. Like its famous stone counterpart in England, it functioned as an astronomical calendar. The posts align with the summer solstice, winter solstice, and spring equinox. On specific mornings, the sun rises in perfect alignment with certain posts when viewed from the circle's center. This required a deep understanding of solar movement and careful engineering. The people who built this around 1000 AD in central Illinois were doing exactly what Stonehenge's builders did across the Atlantic. 4 separate versions of the circle were built here over generations, each one refined. 7. Kincaid Mounds, Massac County. Deep in southern Illinois, near a small town called Brookport, there is a site most Illinoisans have never visited. Kincaid Mounds was a real city. Between 1050 and 1400 AD, up to 8,000 people lived here in a planned urban center with a central plaza, a wooden palisade wall, and 11 major earthen mounds. This was not a village. This was a functioning metropolis in a region that today has almost no towns at all. Then, like every Mississippian city, it was abandoned. The mounds are still there, largely unexcavated, sitting in a farm field at the end of a gravel road that most GPS systems cannot find. 6. Emerald Acropolis and the ancient road, Lebanon, 20 miles east of St. Louis. Near the town of Lebanon, there is an ancient site called Emerald Mound that almost nobody visits. Archaeologists believe it was a pilgrimage destination. People traveled hundreds of miles to reach it for specific ceremonies. What makes it extraordinary is its connection to Cahokia. The 2 sites are linked by an ancient road, a raised engineered pathway stretching miles across the Illinois landscape. The road is largely invisible now, buried under centuries of farmland. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed it exists. An engineered road connecting a pyramid city to a pilgrimage site in Illinois. 5. Falling Springs Petroglyph, Pope County. In the Shawnee National Forest County, behind a waterfall called Falling Springs, there are petroglyphs carved into rock by people whose identity remains genuinely unknown. The images, human figures, animals, geometric symbols, do not match any identified Native American artistic tradition from this region. Some researchers suggest connections to cultures from the American Southwest. Others propose links to even earlier prehistoric peoples. This site appears in almost no mainstream Illinois historical documentation. You find it because someone who grew up nearby tells you about it, not because any guidebook sent you there. Cahokia Mounds, Collinsville. Cahokia Mounds sits just outside Collinsville, 8 miles east of St. Louis. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico. And Monk's Mound, its central pyramid, covers more ground at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. At its peak around 1100 AD, Cahokia had between 10 and 20,000 residents. That made it larger than London at the same point in history. It had neighborhoods, plazas, a market district, a ruling class, and evidence of human sacrifice. Then between 1200 and 1400 AD, everyone left. Drought, political collapse, overpopulation, flooding. Researchers have proposed all of these. None has been accepted as definitive. The descendants of Cahokia's people have never been identified among any living Native American nation. A city larger than medieval London, with pyramids, in Illinois, gone without a clear explanation. And most people driving past the Collinsville exit on Interstate 255 have no idea it is there. 3. Underground Effigy Mounds, Daviess County. In the far northwest corner of Illinois near the town of Galena, there is something even archaeologists rarely discuss publicly. Effigy mounds, earthworks built in animal shapes that extend into natural cave formations below the ground. Effigy mounds are common in Wisconsin and Iowa. Finding them in Illinois is unusual. Finding them descending into caves is nearly without precedent in this region. The serpentine shapes align with indigenous beliefs about the below world, a realm governed by great underwater serpents. Building earthworks that literally go underground at these sites appears deeply intentional. The full extent has never been publicly mapped. Access is restricted. The drowned capital, Kaskaskia, was the first capital of Illinois. Established in 1703, it became one of the most important cities in the American interior. The location where Illinois was officially declared a state in 1818. In 1881, the Mississippi River flooded with unusual force and permanently changed its course. Kaskaskia was swallowed. Streets, buildings, cemeteries, all went under water and silt. What remains today is a small island accessible only through Missouri. A few hundred people still live there. The old church still stands. And beneath the water surrounding that island, the original first capital of Illinois is still there. Submerged, preserved, forgotten. Cahokia's vanished population. We saved the most haunting question for last. Not a structure, a disappearance. At its height, Cahokia held up to 20,000 people. Then they left. Across 2 centuries, the entire population dispersed. No bodies in mass graves, no signs of conquest. No catastrophic destruction layer in the archaeological record. They simply walked away from the greatest city in North America and were never heard from as a unified people again. No known nation today claims descent from Cahokia's residents with certainty. The identity of 20,000 people, where they went, who their descendants are, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. And it happened right here in Illinois. 12 structures, 12 mysteries. All of them in a state most people picture as flat farmland and Chicago traffic. Illinois is hiding centuries of stories. We are just getting started uncovering them. If this showed you something you did not know, subscribe. New Illinois content every week. See you in the next one.